Hey, Mrs. Brown here. Today we are continuing on with our study of Unit 4, Part 2, and we've already talked about personality. Now we're going to go into motivation. So, understanding what is directing our behavior, what is motivating us. And this starts with question number 29 in your notes if you are one of my students. Okay, so when we look at motivation, there's lots of different theories out there, and no one theory is any more correct than the other theory because I think it depends on what the situation is, and sometimes some of these are working together. So let's go ahead and go into the different ideas on what motivates our behavior and trying to understand why we do what we do. All right, so the first thing that we've actually talked about before is incentive theory. So, the incentive theory of motivation says that we do things because we want to get rewarded for them. And so, this is a form of operant conditioning. And with incentive theory, we talked about this back in our learning unit, and it has to be something that is a tangible reward. So the incentive has to be like money or a sticker or something that you can hold in your hands. And it has to be something that they are doing, someone is doing that behavior in order to get that reward. We also have talked about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic being more, I want to do this because I like doing this and I feel like, I have the motivation to do this just because it makes me feel good. Versus the extrinsic or external motivation is that you're doing something for an external reason. Now, an incentive could be an extrinsic motivator, right? But so could any reward, whether it's tangible and you can hold it in your hands, or it's the idea of, I want people to like me. I want people to love me. I want to be, recognized and praised for what I do. So extrinsic can be an incentive, but it can be any sort of external reward or motivator that you might want or encounter. Moving on to number 30 in your notes, and feel free to pause this video if you need to. And the slides for this are in Canvas if you're my student. Another reason we do things is to satisfy a biological need, right? So, like, this is the nature part of why we might do something. And this is called drive reduction theory. So, we reduce a drive, and that's why we are motivated to do certain behaviors. The drive is the actual biological need. All right. It is an aroused or motivated state that you need to satisfy. So when we talk about a biological drive, it could be like hunger or thirst, um, or you're cold, something that is automatic and that you need to do something in order to correct. Our body likes to be in a state of homeostasis. Homeostasis means balance. And so when we're not in that state, we have a drive to do something to correct that. And so if we're hungry, our drive is hunger, then the behavior that we would do is we would eat. If our drive is thirst, then we would drink something. So there's the drive and then the actual behavior. All right. So the next theory is that we try to do things for the sake of sensation seeking. And so sometimes we do things not because we have a biological need to, and not because we're going to be rewarded with something, but because we enjoy that state of arousal. We enjoy that sensation, that thrill. So, like, why do you climb a mountain? Or why do you ride a roller coaster? Or why do you jump out of a plane and skydive? That actually goes against our biological need for survival, right? Because you could potentially have an accident. But people do it anyway. My husband went skydiving and he said it was like the most amazing experience he's ever had. And so, why do we as humans seek these sensations and these thrills? Well, we don't really have an explanation for that, but we do. And so this is where we get the idea that sometimes what is motivating us is that sensation seeking. Now, this does produce probably an adrenaline rush, and we do have a biological response to these situations that helps to motivate us. So this might, be working with our biological system as well. But the idea that we are seeking that sensation goes with the actual name of the theory, the arousal theory. So the arousal theory, or the optimum arousal or optimal arousal, you'll hear it many different ways, says that we are motivated to seek that optimum level of arousal, and we will do things to kind of give us that thrill in our lives. Now, one idea that goes with this is the Yerkes-Dodson law. I've heard people say Yerkes-Dodson, Yerkes-Dodson. So whatever you like there. But the Yerkes-Dodson law, and you'll see the graph. You'll see this like curve, and you'll see questions where you have to answer scenarios or questions that deal with this law and with this curve. So this goes with sensation seeking and the arousal theory. And it basically says that we like to perform under an optimal level of arousal, that there is like this just right level of stress or arousal where we perform our best. And if we have too little arousal, we might not be motivated enough. We might be, bored or not feel any stress, and so we don't perform well. If we have too much arousal or too much stress, then we might shut down and not have our best performance. And so when we look at the graph, you can see that as our stress or anxiety or level of arousal increases up to a certain point, our performance increases too. And we reach this at the top of this arc, whatever you want to call it, arc, curve thing, you have your peak performance. And that is the point of optimal or optimum arousal. But as we increase in stress or anxiety or arousal past that, our performance decreases. So I like to think of this like if you've ever heard the story of Goldilocks and the three bears. The soup is like too hot, and then the soup is too cold, and then the soup is just right. So the point of the just right is in the middle, where we have the mid-level of our arousal, enough to motivate us, but not make us shut down. All right. Self-determination theory, this is just putting a name to what I kind of talked about at the beginning of this, which is intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So the name of that idea is the self-determination theory, that we feel motivated to satisfy our needs for competence and autonomy. Sometimes we're motivated by an intrinsic reason, and sometimes we have external or intrinsic motivators. And then instinct theory basically is something that is inborn. We are born with it. Humans have instincts and animals have instincts as well, and they help to enable us for survival. All right, so what I want you guys to do, my kids, you are using the Myers textbook, is I want you to use your notes that you did and the textbook if you need it. I don't know that you will, to complete the chart, which is question 35 in your notes packet. So feel free to pause this video and go ahead and complete that chart now. All right, so hopefully you've completed your chart now and you're ready to move on. Another topic that goes with motivation is that sometimes we're motivated by conflict. And conflict can be good conflict, like a deadline that's helping us to stay on track with our work and have a goal to reach. Or it could be bad conflict, like conflict with another person or conflict between two ideas that you're not sure which one to choose. So conflict does motivate us, but different types of conflicts impact us in different ways. And so Lewin came up with this idea of conflict situations, and that these different types of conflicts have different results in terms of motivating our behavior. And this goes with question 37 for you. So we have approach conflict, avoidance conflict, and approach avoidance conflict. All right, so approach, think about like, ooh, I would approach this choice. Ooh, I would approach this choice too. It's two attractive alternatives, two good things. The cost of making this choice is low. Like, it's not very stressful. For example, do I want to eat tacos tonight, or do I want to eat pizza tonight? They're both good options. So while you may feel some stress to try to make a decision, it's not something that's going to deeply impact you. Avoidance is a little bit more impactful because it's two disagreeable or two undesirable options that you have to choose from. If you've ever heard the expression, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, like no matter what I do, it's not going to be good. I have to just choose the lesser of two evils. I oftentimes feel this way when I'm voting in a presidential election because I sometimes find myself not liking either candidate and I have to make a decision, but I have, issues with both sides. An example on a lesser scale might be, do you want to clean your room or do you want to do the dishes? Well, you probably don't want to do either one, but you have to make that decision. So it's a little bit more stressful for you than an approach conflict. And then one that requires a lot of thought and a little bit more stress as well is approach avoidance. This is where you might make a pros and cons list where you have good things and bad things about each of your choices. And so you have a lot to think about with which decision you want to make. For example, which college should I attend, right? Because this is a big decision and there's good things and bad things about each of your choices. Maybe you have a school that you really love and is great for your major, but it's out of state. And so you're far away from home and it's going to cost you more money. But the school that is in state, maybe you don't like it as much, or it's not, great for your major, but it's close by. You'll have a support system and it's much cheaper with your tuition. So these are the type of decisions where you really have to sit there and kind of weigh your options. And this is called approach avoidance conflict. All right, so we're going to move in now to everyone's favorite topic, food, and talk about the motivation of hunger. This is number 38. So why are we motivated to eat food? Biologically, we need food to survive, and so our body will produce hunger cues. It comes from our brain and it comes from our hormones. So we have our nervous system and our endocrine system working together. We have already talked about this, but we'll review a little bit which part of your brain is commanding the endocrine system. That is the hypothalamus. And specifically for hunger, you have the lateral hypothalamus and the ventromedial hypothalamus. And so the lateral hypothalamus is what will make you feel hungry. We talked about the little mnemonic. If I'm late for lunch, then I'll feel hungry. I'm late for lunch, so I'm hungry. And late is the first part of the word lateral. The ventromedial hypothalamus dials back down. Ventromedial has the word dial in it, dials back down your hunger. And so that is what will allow you to feel full. So those are the two parts of the hypothalamus that are involved in hunger responses. And then we have the part that is controlling the endocrine system and your hormone responses. All right, so I'm going to wrap up this video here, and then I'm going to go into these endocrine hormones in part 2 of our motivation video. So go to part 2.